success. So, Chris, I want to ask you first, what is going on here with LeBron saying no to this?
I think there are a few things. One, you notice when he gave the interview to the media in which he said he was going to wear his last name on his jersey, he had the more than an athlete hat on. And LeBron told us everything I do is meant to, for a purpose. I think him wearing that hat and then also saying in the course of that interview, look, I'm still going to speak out on these issues. He even addressed a few during that interview. So I think that shows that LeBron is still going to use this opportunity to address social justice issues, which is the most important thing. Heck, maybe it was more than an athlete that he would have put on his jersey. I think the second thing is that knowing LeBron, my view is that he does not like being dictated to. I'm not saying he can't buy into from a coach or from an authority figure, but I think his general nature is that he doesn't like being dictated to. And I think LeBron, like myself, like Mike Scott, like Jaylen Brown, like thousands, if not millions of other people, when they saw this list, they said, well, when the powers that be give you permission to put certain things on your jersey, doesn't that kind of fly in the face of the spirit of protest? So it just hit me as a little odd that, okay, they're going to be limited to these 20 some odd slogans or words that they can put on their jersey. I know the Players Association had a lot to do with it, but still, I think they did it wrong. I think the Players Association and the league should have said, look, no curse words, no profanity, but other than that, there's a deadline to let us know what you want on the back of your jersey. And because you need to, have a deadline so you can put them on the jerseys. And then if they saw any words that were untoward, they could have had players change it. But you should have gone that route instead of, I think, giving guys, a list of names they could use. And LeBron said it. He had thought about some things. So it's not like he's against putting a phrase on your jersey. He just didn't like the names they gave. And finally, I'm going to say this. I think the whole purpose of having the word on the back of their jersey is to be thought-provoking. So much so that the journalists after the game will ask you, well, LeBron or Rajon, why did you have this word or this phrase on your jersey? That gives you an opportunity to expound on it in the interview and maybe spark a discussion nationally about something. Whereas this list is pretty innocuous. I mean, justice, equality, respect. Those aren't going to move the needle. I will say, I think if a white player like Kyle Korver is wearing Black Lives Matter, that is, that's a little more powerful. But having black guys have justice and equality and things like that, I just don't. There are a lot of other things I would have liked to have seen players be able to put on their jersey.
Okay, Chris, I appreciate everything you just said, and I'm going to tell you what I told my partner across the table earlier in this show. I'm so with you about, I was stunned that the NBA, of all progressive, forward-thinking and looking leagues, would limit the freedom of expression at a time in this country in which personalized freedom of expression is crucial to our development, to our progress along racial lines in this country. So now I'm going to speak as just a white guy. And I'm going to tell you what I think a lot of white people would think when they saw those messages. We need those messages. I don't care what Kyle Korver wears. I don't care if he wears Black Lives Matter because you're looking at it through a different prism than I am. I care what the Black Stars are wearing across the backs of their jerseys. And I especially care what that man, number 23, was going to wear on the back of his because it would have been clever and creative and powerful. And I needed to see it, and I needed all the white people to continue to see it because we need to be bombarded with it. Our psyches, our subconscious need to be bombarded with those slogans, those expressions, those messages to keep Black Lives Matter conversation not just going, but aflame. We need constant bombardment all through this time in this bubble in Orlando because white people obviously look up to black stars, especially that man, LeBron James. So it crushed me to hear LeBron say, I wish I'd had some say-so. You're kidding me. It's incomprehensible. It's unimaginable that the commissioner or maybe Chris Paul as the head of the Players Association wouldn't just pick up the phone and say, LeBron, we need your input. What's up? You know, what are you thinking about this? I'm at a loss. I'm dumbfounded. They would cut that man who has been a trailblazer when it comes to over the years. Way before Colin Kaepernick took a knee, that man was taking a public stance on Black Lives Mattering. He helped start the movement before it was a movement. That's the man I needed to hear from. And I don't want white people to sit back and think subliminally, well, wait a second, if LeBron's not going to have a message on his back, maybe it's over now. Maybe Black Lives Movement is sort of, it's lost its steam. Maybe it's faded. It can't fade. We've only just begun. In the history of this country, the minds and eyes and maybe even hearts of white people are as open as they've ever been. See white people joining black brothers and sisters protesting all over this country. It's unprecedented, and we need to capitalize on it. And to Shannon's point, as a black man, he's saying, I don't need more symbolic gestures, and I get that. You need results, which, by the way, was one of the expressions Jaylen Brown wanted to wear on his back was results. Got to get them, but you got to start by bombarding the white community with messages that make them sit back and even subliminally think, oh, I'm joining this, my basketball's back, but gee, Jaylen Brown's wearing results. Wonder what that means. Make people think. And all of a sudden, it's like LeBron's unwittingly falling back into that trap of shut up and dribble. It looks like he's just going to shut up and dribble to some white people, and obviously that's not, that narrative offends him the most deeply. So I need him to wear something. If nobody else does, he needs to. And the NBA really dropped the ball on this one by not involving that man.
Yeah, I agree, Chris. And I was talking to Skip earlier today. I was like, the NFL, when you have your cleats for cause, they ask you to get that in so they can vet the foundation, make sure that's a worthy cause, and then they'll allow you to put it on. I believe, and I guess that's what you and Skip are getting at. Vet it. Okay, here, these are some of the things that we would like to have put on the back of our jersey. You can't say, okay, you can have symbols or you can have slogans on the back of your jersey, but here's the slogans that you can have on the back of your jersey. Well, what the hell is that about? You told me I could have what I wanted, and then you told me what I could choose from. It's like my grandparents would take me to the store. Okay, boy, here's $1, but you can only buy this. What? You gave me $1. Let me buy what I want to buy. And so I think, and when LeBron said, I would have liked to have some input. That's okay that I didn't. I think the thing, right, he didn't push back, Chris. You remember when Patrick Beverley said, LeBron says hoop, we're going to hoop. And I don't think LeBron wanted to get out, well, this was LeBron, because anything that happens in the NBA, everybody says, well, Commissioner Silver ran that by LeBron first anyway. And so I think he tries to really hide, he tries to stay in the background, knowing that he has carries a lot of weight, and his words carry a lot of weight. But I'm not surprised, because I believe LeBron says, I built up equity in this game. You look at my IPS school, you look at my outspokenness on Trayvon Martin, you look at me wearing the T-shirts, I can't breathe. You look at the initiative that I started with voting, and some of the WNBA players and some of the other players that I've got on board with this. He says, my resume when it comes to these kinds of causes is impeccable. It speaks for himself. And so I agree with you, Chris. I believe that every interview and every conversation that he has in that bubble, he's going to start is that, yes, I'm happy to be in the bubble, happy to be back with my team, but we understand what's going on outside of this bubble. There's a cause that's greater than what we're playing for in here, and we're going to see that through.
Yeah, look, I think both of you guys made great points. Skip, and again, I'm looking at it as an African-American. I think some whites, though, get tired of blacks saying justice and equality. I mean, we've been pushing for these things for 400 years. Right. This is not new. And the needle has not moved to the way that it needs to move. And one of the things that has been most encouraging to me in this whole movement is the number of white people who have been involved in these protests, whites pulling down these Confederate statues, whites in the military saying we need to change the names of these bases. Look, white people make up 72% of the population. It's rising because now, Shannon, they're including some Hispanics now as white. You notice that. So the population of whites is growing where it was down a little while, like a few years ago. But because of the population, because of the power disparity, the economic disparity, I think it is imperative that white people see white people fighting for justice and equality for blacks. Yeah, like a Kyle Korver and other people I mentioned. That's why we want to hear from Jerry Jones and these other, owners. And look, I think that Adam Silver, I know Adam, I know his heart, I believe. I'm sure he means well. But the optics, we're trying to eradicate white supremacy so that there is racial equality. The optics are that 29 white owners and a white commissioner gave you a list, black guys, that you can put on your jersey. That's where people are feeling like it's just symbolic. And as Shannon said, LeBron is not really about symbolism as much as he's about action. The voting rights campaign, the school, setting up his childhood friends, his agent, and now a business mogul in Maverick Carter. So LeBron's more about action than just symbolism.